A freezing night swept across the frontier as the Apache girl stood trembling in the snow, her voice breaking with desperation. She wasn't begging for desire, she was begging for survival, clutching her thin dress as the storm closed in around her. But the moment those words left her lips, the cowboy realized this wasn't just a plea for warmth, it was the start of a dangerous secret hidden beneath the winter wind. Why would a proud Apache girl turn to the very man her people feared? And what storm, colder than the snow itself, was she running from? The wind slammed against the wooden cabins with a low, angry growl, shaking loose flakes of snow from the rooftops. A lantern swung outside the trading post, its metal hook creaking as the storm pressed harder against the valley. Boots crunched through the frost-hardened ground, slow, steady, deliberate. The lone cowboy had just finished securing his horse for the night when he heard it, a soft gasp carried by the wind, fragile enough to be mistaken for a dying ember. He turned. Two figures stood at the edge of the clearing, snow swirling around them like torn white cloth. One stepped forward, arms wrapped tight around herself, breath trembling in the cold. Her hair hung in dark, wet strands over her shoulders, her dress far too thin for a night like this. The other girl lingered behind her, shivering so badly her teeth clicked like rattling bones. The cowboy's hand instinctively dropped to the blanket folded over his saddle, the act of care, immediate, wordless. But before he could offer it, the girl spoke. "Please." Her voice cracked. "I need a man's warmth tonight." The words hit the air like a spark on dry timber. Too sharp, too sudden, too desperate. Not desire, not seduction, survival. A gust of wind tore through the clearing, nearly knocking the smaller girl off her feet. The cowboy stepped forward quickly, catching her by the arm before she could fall. Her skin burned with cold, colder than any flesh should be, and something inside him twisted at the realization. They had been out here far too long, but before he could ask anything, a distant sound cut through the storm, the faint ring of metal, like a chain brushing against a post. The older girl flinched at the noise, eyes darting toward the dark pines beyond the cabins. Someone else was out there. Someone they feared more than the cold. The cowboy tightened his grip on the blanket. "Who's after you?" he asked. The girl didn't answer. She only looked at him with pleading eyes, snow gathering in her lashes. Behind her, the younger sister whispered, "He'll find us." And the storm suddenly felt much colder. The cowboy didn't waste another second. He swung the heavy wool blanket from his saddle and placed it around the older girl's shoulders, then draped the second half around the younger one's trembling frame. The snow had soaked through their dresses completely. Their skin felt like cold river stones. "Come inside," he said softly. "We can't," the older girl whispered. "Why not?" "We're being hunted." Her words fluttered in the wind like torn fabric, thin but urgent. The cowboy stiffened. No names. No faces described, but the fear in their voices spoke louder than anything else. The younger girl gripped his coat sleeve, fingers icy, breath shaking. "He's close," she murmured. "Who?" the cowboy pressed. "The man with the iron bells." A sudden gust rattled the lantern beside the trading post. Its chain clinked, a sharp metallic ring that made both girls flinch so violently the cowboy instinctively stepped in front of them. He scanned the tree line. Only darkness. Only snow, but fear that deep didn't come from shadows alone. "Inside," he said again, firmer this time. "Both of you." The older girl hesitated. "If he sees us entering a cabin, he'll follow." "Let him follow," the cowboy muttered. "You'll freeze if you stay out here." Another tremor ran through the younger sister's body. The cowboy cursed under his breath and gently guided them toward the post's wooden steps. Their bare feet left faint, melting marks on the snow, each step slower, heavier. The storm was stealing their strength. As he pushed the door open, warm lamplight spilled across the snow. The girls gasped at the sudden heat. He ushered them inside quickly, shutting the door against the wind. "Sit near the stove," he said. The older girl shook her head. "Not too close." "Why?" "He can smell warm skin." The cowboy paused. That sentence weighed more than the storm outside. He knelt near the stove anyway, adjusting the flame lower to prevent the crackling from echoing through the walls. The older girl kept scanning the windows, eyes dark, alert. "You two ran from him?" the cowboy asked. "We escaped," she said. "How far?" "Since sundown." That meant hours, running through snowfall thick as wool, wearing nothing but thin dresses meant for warmer days. The younger girl's teeth chattered hard. "He took our coats." The cowboy stared at her. "He stripped you." "For control," the older girl said, "to make us stay close." The cowboy's jaw flexed. A spark of anger flickered behind his steady gaze, but he kept his voice calm. "You're safe here." "No one is safe," the older girl replied. "Not with him," the younger one whispered. A faint sound outside cut her sentence in half. Jingle. Soft. Almost delicate. Like a single metal bell brushed by the wind. The girls froze. The cowboy instantly reached for the rifle leaning against the wall. He didn't lift it, but he rested a hand on the stock. "You heard that?" he whispered. Both girls nodded in perfect, terrified symmetry. "He marks his path," the older girl whispered, "so we always hear him coming." "Iron bells," the younger added. "Small ones. They never stop ringing." A wave of silence crashed over the cabin. Outside, the storm howled. Snow scraped against the shutters. But beneath it, jingle. A second time. Closer. The cowboy exhaled slowly and moved toward the window. He parted the curtain with 2 fingers, careful not to disturb the frame. Nothing but white. Nothing but wind. He let the curtain fall. "Tell me what he wants," the cowboy said. The older girl swallowed hard. "He bought us." "At an auction?" "Yes. And you fled?" "We had to." The younger sister gripped the blanket tighter, voice breaking. "He said we belonged to him." "And we don't," the older one added. "No," the cowboy said. "You don't." A sharp thud struck the outside wall. The girls gasped. The younger one covered her mouth. The cowboy steadied himself. A second thud followed. Then a slow drag, something heavy scraping across the boards outside. He motioned for silence. The scraping stopped just below the window. Every breath in the room froze. The cowboy tightened his grip on the rifle. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The older girl leaned close to his back. "Is it him?" she mouthed silently. The younger nodded without even looking, as if she could feel him through the wood. Then, jingle, right at the window. The cowboy's heart slammed against his ribs as a shadow passed over the frost-lined glass. 2 feet. A coat. A slow, deliberate shape. But the face stayed hidden behind the snow. A gloved hand lifted, paused, and dragged its knuckles across the window pane. Long, slow, claiming. The younger girl whimpered into the blanket. The cowboy raised the rifle an inch higher. Outside, the shadow leaned closer, and the bells chimed again. The cowboy didn't move at first. He stood like a mountain carved from old stone, rifle lowered just enough to avoid provoking the shadow outside. Snow slapped the window. The bells chimed once more, slow, steady, intentional. The man outside wasn't hiding. He wanted them to know he was there. The younger sister pressed her face into the blanket. "He found us," she whispered. "Stay quiet," the cowboy murmured. The older girl slid a hand across the table, feeling for anything sharp. Her fingers found a wooden spoon. Useless, but she held it anyway. The cowboy lifted one finger for silence. Outside, the hand with the bells traced another line across the frosted window, a long, cold scrape that sent both sisters trembling. Then the hand lowered, disappearing from view. For a moment, nothing. Only wind. Only snow. Only soft, whispering bells drifting toward the far side of the cabin. The cowboy moved to the second window, footsteps silent. He parted the curtain. The shadow walked past the corner of the cabin, lantern light brushing across a dark coat. The bells hung from the man's belt, swaying faintly with each slow step. The girls stayed crouched behind the table, backs pressed together. "Does he always walk that slow?" the cowboy whispered. The older girl nodded. "He enjoys fear. He enjoys hunting," the younger added. The cowboy clenched his jaw. "He armed?" "Yes," the older girl said. "Always." "With what?" "A long knife," the younger said, "and rope." The cowboy's grip tightened on his rifle. The shadow paused near the back door. Snow drifted around him. He didn't try the handle. He just stood there, as if listening for breath on the other side of the wall. "He's counting steps," the older girl whispered. "Why?" "To measure the cabin. He does it before entering," the younger said. "Always." The cowboy exhaled slowly. This wasn't a drunk wanderer or desperate traveler. This was a man who followed patterns, a man used to controlling victims. "Did he hurt you?" the cowboy asked. The older girl hesitated. "No," she finally answered. "Not yet," the younger whispered. The cowboy's eyes darkened behind the shadow of his hat. He moved to block the girls fully with his body. "Listen," he said softly. "If he enters, get behind the stove. Stay low." "We can't let him speak," the older girl said. "Why?" "His voice, it breaks people." The younger nodded quickly. "He persuades. He twists words." The cowboy frowned. "Doesn't matter. He won't speak long." A soft tap hit the door, not a knock. A testing touch. Another tap followed. Slow, rhythmic, like a finger running along the grain of the wood. The younger girl's eyes filled with tears. "He found the door," she whispered. The cowboy raised his rifle, positioning himself squarely between the girls and the entrance. He cocked the hammer back with a quiet click. Outside, the bells jingled again. Then the tapping stopped. Silence thickened, heavy as wet snow. The cowboy leaned closer to the door, listening. Nothing. "Maybe he left," the younger girl whispered. The older girl shook her head instantly. "No, he waits." "How do you know?" the cowboy asked. "He always waits." A long, drawn-out breath escaped from the other side of the door, warm enough to fog the cold wood. The cowboy stepped back, rifle aimed square at the handle. "He's breathing on it," the younger girl whispered, horrified. "He wants you to open," the older said. "That won't happen," the cowboy muttered. The breathing stopped. Another silence. Then, scrape. Something sharp dragged down the doorframe from top to bottom. The sound made both girls flinch violently. The cowboy didn't blink. "He marked it," the older girl whispered. "What does that mean?" "He'll return before dawn." The cowboy's stomach knotted. He glanced at the window. The shadow was gone. The bells faded into the distance carried by the storm. A micro-victory. The girls seemed to breathe again. The younger sister lowered her head, weeping into the blanket. "He's gone?" she asked. "For now," the cowboy said. "How long?" "Hard to say." The older girl wiped her sister's cheeks with gentle hands. "Thank you," she whispered to the cowboy. "For what?" "For not opening the door." "I'm not foolish," he said. The wind roared louder. Snow battered the shutters. The storm wasn't easing, it was growing. The younger sister's voice broke. "What if he comes back with others?" The cowboy tightened the blanket around her shoulders. "Then I'll be waiting." A sudden sharp sound cut through the cabin. Clink. A small metal ring hit the wooden floorboards near the back door. The cowboy spun around. The older girl covered her mouth. The younger girl whispered, voice trembling, "He threw a bell inside." The cowboy knelt slowly, picking up the tiny iron bell from the floor. It was warm and tied to a piece of rope. The cowboy held the tiny iron bell in his gloved hand, turning it slowly. Snowmelt still clung to its edges. It hadn't been outside long. The rope tied to it was short, frayed at one end, as if it had been yanked off something in a hurry. "How did he do that?" the cowboy whispered. The older girl's voice trembled. "He leaves bells where he claims land." "This isn't his land," the cowboy muttered. "It is now," the younger girl whispered. A cold silence settled over them. The cowboy set the bell on the table. It rolled slightly and chimed, a soft, eerie jingle that made both sisters shrink back. He covered it with a cloth. "That buys us time," he said. "How?" the older girl asked. "He wants fear more than violence." The younger shook her head. "He wants control." The cowboy looked at her. "You speak like you've known him long." She swallowed hard. "He bought us 2 days ago." "For what?" "For work," the older said quickly. "For ownership," the younger corrected. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He knelt beside them so his voice stayed steady and low. "You're safe for now. I'll keep watch." The older girl studied his face. "Why help us?" Because someone should. A soft knock hit the back wall, so quiet it almost blended with the storm. The younger sister gasped. He's still here. No, the cowboy said. Not a knock. Snowslide. But the girls didn't relax. The older girl's eyes darted to the window. He never leaves fully. Then he's testing us, the cowboy said. Yes, she whispered. Always testing. He rose and paced to the front door, checking the latch again. He slid the iron bar across it. Then he added a wooden chair beneath the handle. The girls watched, grateful but frightened. You two warm enough? He asked. A little, the older girl said. Too cold, the younger murmured. The cowboy tossed another log into the stove, careful not to let the flames roar too high. He didn't want smoke rising through the chimney. Not tonight. The younger girl's voice cracked. Why does he use bells? To warn, the older said. To promise, the younger added. To promise what? The cowboy asked. The younger girl whispered, that he'll return. The cowboy moved to the window again, scanning the shadows. A brief clearing in the storm let moonlight pass through, just enough to reveal fresh tracks circling the cabin, deep ones, heavy boots. He walked a full circle, the cowboy murmured. He's marking you too, the older said. Let him mark, the cowboy muttered. I mark back. He extinguished the lantern near the window. Darkness wrapped the cabin, broken only by the faint glow of the stove. Why dark? The younger asked. He can't see inside if we stay low. Will he try the windows? Not tonight, the cowboy said. How do you know? Windows make noise. He wants quiet. A new sound rose above the storm, distant hoofbeats pounding the frozen earth. The younger girl grabbed his coat. He brought horses. No, the older girl said, listening harder. Only one. The cowboy stiffened. A single rider, but heavy. Fast. Determined. The girls exchanged terrified glances. That's him, the older girl whispered. No bells, the younger asked. He doesn't use them while riding. Hoofbeats thundered closer, shaking loose snow from the roof. The cowboy stepped back from the door, rifle raised, breath shallow. The younger sister shook violently. He'll break the door. No, the cowboy said. He'll try, the older girl insisted. Not while he's alone, the cowboy answered. Men like him approach slow. The hoofbeats stopped. Dead silence. The cowboy motioned for the girls to stay hidden. He edged toward the peephole drilled into the wood. Snow clung around it, but he brushed it aside with the barrel of his rifle. Through the tiny gap, he saw nothing. No rider, no horse, only swirling snow. He frowned, leaned closer. Still nothing. He opened the peephole wider and froze. Fresh footprints stood inches from the door, deep, crisp, leading straight toward the cabin. But there was no horse, no man. The wind howled, erasing prints at the edges, yet leaving the center path untouched. The cowboy whispered. He walked, then rode, then walked again. The older girl's eyes widened. He's circling on foot now. The younger clutched her sister. He's hunting us again. The cowboy turned quickly, pointing to the girls. Stay behind the stove. Stay low. The younger nodded, tears streaming. A sudden metallic clang hit the roof, hard, sharp, deliberate. The older girl gasped. He climbed up. The younger cried out softly. He's on top. Snow slid from the shingles as the weight above shifted. Another clang, another step. Deliberate, measured. The cowboy aimed upward, finger tightening on the trigger. The man on the roof dragged something across the boards, something long, metal, and heavy. The younger whispered through trembling lips. He brought the chain. The cowboy steadied his breath. Then, a long length of iron chain dropped past the window, slamming against the wall with a violent rattle. The chain swung against the wall like a metal serpent, each impact sending shivers through the wooden frame. The younger sister clapped her hands over her ears. The older one pulled her close, eyes never leaving the ceiling. He's hooking the cabin, the older girl whispered. What for? The cowboy asked. To hear us move, she said. To hear us breathe, the younger added. The cowboy stared upward. The weight above shifted again. The chain scraped across the shingles. then went still. Snow pattered down past the windows like sand through an hourglass. "He's listening," the cowboy murmured. The stove crackled. One stray spark popped. Both girls flinched at the tiny sound. "Do we put the fire out?" the younger asked. "Not yet," the cowboy said. "He'll see the smoke," the older warned. "In this storm, smoke dies quick," he replied. He crossed the cabin in slow, silent steps, checking each window latch. The chain rasped faintly overhead, as if it were being wrapped around the chimney. "Does he know you came here?" the cowboy asked. "He watched us follow you," the older girl said. "He studies every step," the younger added. The cowboy cursed under his breath. "So he knew I'd bring you inside?" "Yes," the older girl said. "Then why wait outside?" "He wants you trapped also," the younger replied. Outside, the chain lurched again. A heavy clank echoed down the chimney. Soot drifted into the stove, darkening the small flame. "He's sealing us in," the cowboy muttered. The younger girl's voice shook. "Can he come down the chimney?" "Too narrow," the cowboy said. "For a man." "But not for smoke," the older girl whispered. Another sharp yank shook the cabin. The stovepipe rattled. Ash sprinkled down into the fire. The cowboy grabbed a rag and dampened it with water, ready to smother the flames if smoke began backing into the room. "Listen to me," he said. "You can still run." "Where?" the older girl asked. "He marked the snow," the younger added. "He'll see our tracks." The cowboy met their eyes. "Tracks can be covered." "By what?" the older girl asked. "By a horse," he said. The younger sister frowned. "You'd ride in this storm?" "If needed," he answered. "With us?" "Not leaving you here," he said. A sudden, dull thump hit near the chimney's base. The chain rattled again, then grew quiet. The wind roared louder, but beneath it the girls heard something else. A soft, regular creak, like weight shifting on a rope. "He anchored himself," the older girl whispered. "Where?" "Above the roof edge," she said. "He won't fall now," the younger added. The cowboy pictured it. A man crouched at the peak of the roof, chain looped around the chimney, leaning over the side, listening, patient as a spider. He lowered his voice to barely more than breath. "Tell me how he got you," the cowboy said. The older girl hesitated. "At the agency," she murmured. "So what kind of agency?" "Where they pay for hands," she said. "Temporary workers," the younger added. "You signed anything?" the cowboy asked. "We stamped our marks," the older replied. "He called it a contract," the younger said. "A legal chain before the iron one." "You understand what you signed?" the cowboy asked. "No," the older said. "We were cold." "He said we'd get a bed," the younger added. "And food." The cowboy's jaw hardened. "Did he show a badge?" he asked. "A paper," the older girl answered. "With a seal," the younger added. "County seal." "I don't know," the older said. "Looked official." The cowboy exhaled slowly. "So if Law rides out here, he'll show that paper," he said. "And say we ran," the older girl replied. "And that you stole us," the younger added. The chain overhead went silent. The girls exchanged a glance. "When it goes quiet," the older girl whispered, "he's thinking." "Thinking of what?" "How to bend rules," she said. "How to make you the villain," the younger added. The cowboy walked to the table and pulled out a drawer. Inside were a few folded sheets, old receipts, a faded land deed, a pencil worn down near the nub. He laid them out with rough, quick motions. "What are you doing?" the older girl asked. "Drawing lines," he said. "For what?" "For truth." He scribbled a rough map of the valley, the trading post, the cabins, the agency town 2 days' ride away. He marked a point where the girls said they'd been taken, another where they'd escaped. "Anyone see you run?" he asked. "Some men?" the older girl said. "Did they try to stop you?" "They laughed," the younger added. "Said we'd be back." The cowboy shook his head. "Then he thinks the land is on his side," he said. "He always thinks that," the older girl replied. "He buys people," the younger murmured, "then buys silence." A sharp whistle cut through the storm, high, piercing, coming from the roof. Both girls flinched. "He's calling," the older girl whispered. The cowboy frowned. "Calling who?" "Others," she said. He never hunts truly alone, the younger added. Another whistle answered from far off, faint through the wind. Then another, closer. The sound bounced between the hills like ghost voices. The cowboy's grip tightened on his rifle. How many might come? He asked. 3, the older girl said. Or 4, the younger added. More men with bells? He asked. Some with bells, the older replied. Some with badges, the younger whispered. The cowboy froze. Badges, he repeated. Yes, the older girl said. He pays certain deputies. They collect runaways for him, the younger added. Outside, somewhere beyond the cabin, hoofbeats joined the storm again. First one, then another. Slow, heavy, sure. The cowboy moved to the window, heart pounding. Through the blowing snow, he saw faint lanterns weaving along the valley road. 3, maybe 4, making their way toward the cabin with cruel patience. And above him, the chain rattled once more, as a low male voice finally broke the night. Open up, friend. The laws come calling. The cabin walls trembled as the voice outside settled into the storm, low and steady, the voice of a man used to getting obedience. Snow hissed against the windows. One lantern grew brighter through the swirling white, the others hovering behind like predators waiting for signal. The older girl gripped the younger's hand. He brought deputies, she whispered. They'll take us, the younger murmured. Not while I breathe, the cowboy said. He moved toward the stove, keeping his rifle angled but low enough to avoid casting shadow lines in the window. Outside, boots crunched heavily through the snow, deliberate and slow. Someone struck a match. A second lantern flickered to life. More shapes appeared, shoulders hunched, hats pulled low, guns holstered but ready. A knock hit the front door, not a threat, a polite knock. Evening, a deputy's voice called. The cowboy didn't answer. Another knock. Harder this time. Sir, we know you're inside, the younger girl whimpered. The older one squeezed her hand tight, trying to keep her quiet. The cowboy motioned for silence, then stepped to the door. Speak low, he whispered to the girls. They nodded. The deputy knocked again, still polite, but growing darker under the surface. We're not here for trouble, the deputy said. The cowboy muttered, Men with bells don't ride without trouble. A faint chuckle floated through the door. That man's with us tonight, the deputy said. He's aiding the law. The older girl stiffened. He lies, she whispered. Always, the younger agreed. The cowboy pressed his palms against the cold door. What law? He asked. The voice outside answered calmly. The law of contract. The older girl sucked in a sharp breath. He claimed it, she whispered. He will show papers, the younger added. Outside, the deputy continued, voice smooth as slick ice. We've got signed documents, he said. 2 girls in legal service. You tricked them, the cowboy replied. No trick, the man said lightly. Just business. Another voice, deeper, slower, joined in. Open the door, the second deputy said. Let's talk sensible. The cowboy shook his head. Show the papers through the window, he said. Snow crunched as the deputies shifted. That's not procedure, the deputy answered. It is tonight. A long pause followed. The cowboy could feel the man on the roof shifting his weight. The chain scraped, snow slid, the bells jingled faintly. You've got 3 armed men at your front, the deputy said, and 1 above, the cowboy muttered. The deputy continued. We don't want a fight. Then ride on, the cowboy replied. Can't do that, the deputy said. We have orders. Inside the cabin, the younger girl whispered, He'll break the door. The older girl shook her head. No, he'll force him to open it himself. The cowboy knew she was right. Legal threats first. Violence after. Another polite knock echoed through the room. Sir, the deputy said, voice smoother now. You're harboring property. The cowboy's jaw tightened. They are not property. The deputy shifted tone instantly, colder now. You're obstructing lawful authority, he said. No authority here but weather, the cowboy replied. The wind howled as if agreeing. One of the deputies spoke again, a different one, younger, nervous. Look, we don't want the girls hurt, he said. They're already hurt, the cowboy growled. We're just here to collect them, the deputy insisted. For who? For their employer. The girls shook their heads fiercely. He's not our employer, the older whispered. He's our captor, the younger added. The cowboy raised his voice just enough for the deputies to hear. They came to me freezing. You stripped them. Regulation clothing, one deputy answered. Company issued. They had no coats, the cowboy snapped. Coats cost money, the deputy said. The older girl clenched her fists, fury burning behind her fear. The cowboy felt heat rise in his chest, not from the stove, but something darker, another scrape of chain above. The girls flinched. You feel that, the younger whispered. He's waiting, the older replied. For what? For us to panic. The cowboy steadied his breath. Then the deep deputy spoke again. Last chance, friend. Open the door. The cowboy leaned close, voice low and steady. No. Silence. Then a different sound broke the night. A soft crunch of snow behind the deputies. A fourth lantern flickered into view, swinging as someone approached on foot. The deputies turned. That you, Marshal? One asked. No answer. The lantern swayed closer. The figure walked slowly. Boots heavy, coat hanging long, hat pulled low. Snow blew past his shoulders. The deputies straightened, surprised. Marshal? Another asked. Still nothing. The cowboy stared through the window slit. His breath caught. The man wore no badge, no star, no lawman's coat. The lantern glowed over his waist, and a row of iron bells gleamed on his belt. The older girl gasped silently. The younger girl's knees buckled. The deputies stepped back, confused. You're not the marshal, one said. The man lifted his face just enough, a thin smile beneath the brim. And then, with a slow jingle of the bells, he whispered, Boys, shut that door from your side. The deputies froze. Snow whipped around them, lantern light shivering across their coats as the man with the iron bells stepped forward. His boots sank deep into the snow, one slow step at a time, each movement measured like he was walking toward prey that couldn't flee. Inside the cabin, the younger sister whispered, He tricked them. The older one nodded. He tricks everyone. The cowboy held his rifle tight. He isn't law. He thinks he is, the older girl murmured. Outside, the deputies watched the bellman approach. The tallest deputy swallowed. Sir, you're not the marshal. No, the man said calmly. Then why are you here? The deputy asked. The bellman tilted his head, bells chiming faintly with the motion. Because the girls are mine. The deputies shifted, uncertain now. We thought this was lawful collection, one said. It is, the bellman replied. Then show your badge, another demanded. The man smiled, barely a curve of his mouth. My badge is the contract. Signed by their hands, the younger sister let out a tiny sob. He forced us. I know, the cowboy whispered. Outside, the tallest deputy lifted a lantern, shining it over the bellman's coat. Let's see the contract, he said. The bellman didn't hand anything over. Instead, he reached into his coat slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded paper tied with a red thread. He held it between two fingers like bait. Take it, the bellman said. The deputy stepped forward, but another deputy grabbed his arm. Wait, something's wrong. Inside, the cowboy squinted through the window slit. The paper in the bellman's hand wasn't wet, not even a drop of melted snow. It looked too clean for the storm around them. The older sister noticed too. He kept it inside waxed cloth, she whispered. He protects his lies. The bellman flicked the contract slightly toward the deputies. Go on, he said softly. Read it aloud. One deputy stepped closer and took the paper. His hands shook as he untied the thread. He scanned the lines, brow furrowing deeper with every sentence. It says they agreed to service, the deputy murmured. They didn't, the cowboy growled. They stamped their marks, the deputy read. He forced us, the younger cried. The bellman spoke gently, almost caring. They were cold. I gave them work, shelter. Purpose? You took their coats, the cowboy snapped. To test their strength, the man replied. You left them starving, the older girl said, to see if they obeyed. The cowboy's knuckles whitened around the rifle. The deputies exchanged uneasy glances. One said, "This deal seems wrong," another muttered. "Feels like slavery." The bellman's smile vanished. His voice dropped low, steady. "Return my property." The younger girl's breath caught. "We're not property, not anymore," the older finished. The deputies took a step back. That tiny shift, that hesitation, enraged the bellman. He moved quicker than expected, snatching the lantern from the tallest deputy's hand. Flames flared up as the lantern tilted. "What are you—" the deputy began. The bellman hurled the lantern into the snow, shattering it. Flames hissed out instantly, but the sudden violence drew the deputies' hands to their holsters. "You've no authority here," the tallest deputy barked. The bellman leaned close, bells whispering as they brushed against the deputy's coat. "I have money," he said. "More than your pay." The deputy stiffened. "And I have witnesses ready to swear the girls fled," he added. "Lies," the older sister whispered. "He uses people," the younger murmured. Inside, the cowboy whispered, "They're buying his story." The older girl shook her head. "Not all of them." "Which ones?" the cowboy asked. "The tall deputy," she said. "He doubts him." Outside, that same tall deputy stepped back, hand hovering near his gun. "You're hiding something," he said. The bellman lifted his chin slightly. "Yes," he said, "I hide many things." The deputy stiffened. "What does that mean?" one asked. The bellman raised his eyes, and for the first time his voice sharpened like a blade. "It means you're stepping in front of my hunt." He took a slow step forward. The deputies retreated. Inside the cabin, the cowboy whispered, "He's turning on them." "He always does," the older girl said. "He breaks allies," the younger added. The bellman stopped his advance. His shoulders rose and fell once, controlled, calm, and then he spoke in a chilling whisper. "You boys can help me or freeze with them." The wind screamed around the cabin. The deputies hesitated. And then a new sound broke through the storm. Hoofbeats. Fast, hard. Approaching from the west, the deputies spun toward the noise. The bellman turned too, bells chiming angrily. The cowboy whispered, "Who's that?" The older girl's eyes widened. "That's not his men." "No," the younger added, "that's someone else." The hoofbeats grew louder, thunder rolling through the valley. A lone rider burst through the snowstorm, lantern held high, coat whipping behind him. His horse pounded through the drifts, breath steaming like smoke. The deputies shouted. The bellman stiffened. The rider pulled hard on the reins, stopping just yards away, then lifted the lantern high enough to reveal the badge pinned to his coat. A real one. The older sister gasped. "The marshal!" The younger whispered, "He wasn't supposed to arrive until morning." The cowboy tightened his grip on the rifle. The marshal turned toward the cabin, and the bellman stepped back into the shadows. The marshal swung down from his horse with a practiced ease, boots sinking into the snow. His lantern cast long shadows across the men in front of the cabin. The deputies straightened, trying to look composed like they'd been in control the whole time. Inside, the younger sister clutched the blanket tighter. "Is he different?" she whispered. The older sister frowned. "We don't know yet." The cowboy nudged the window slit open a hair more, eyes narrowed. The marshal walked with slow, heavy steps, not rushed, not scared. He took in every face, the deputies, the man with the bells, the shape of the cabin. "Evening, boys," the marshal said. "Evening, marshal," the tall deputy answered. The bellman stayed half in shadow, bells quiet now, as if they, too, were listening. "Heard there was trouble," the marshal said. The tall deputy cleared his throat. "Dispute over 2 Apache girl," he said. "Runaways," another deputy added. The marshal's gaze flicked toward the cabin door. "Inside there?" he asked. "Yes, sir," the tall deputy answered. The bellman stepped forward, letting the lantern light catch his face. "I hired them," he said calmly. "They fled unfairly." "We were freezing," the older girl whispered inside. "He never says that part," the younger added. The marshal studied the bellman. "You're the employer." "I am," the bellman replied. "You got papers?" the marshal asked. "Of course," the bellman said. He pulled the contract from his coat again and held it out. This time the marshal took it himself. He didn't rush. He untied the red thread carefully, then squinted at the lines. Snow whipped around them, but the paper stayed steady in his gloved hands. The deputies waited. The bellman watched. Inside, everyone held their breath. "Well?" the bellman asked softly. The marshal didn't answer at first. He read one line twice, then a third time. "You wrote this?" he asked. "I dictated," the bellman said. "And they marked it?" "Yes," the man replied, "willingly." The marshal's eyes hardened. "They speak English?" he asked. "A little," the bellman said. "Enough to understand." The older sister shook her head fiercely. "He lied," she whispered. "We only knew numbers," the younger added. The cowboy moved closer. "Can he hear us?" the younger asked. "Not if we stay low," the cowboy whispered. Outside, the marshal folded the contract. "You filed this with the county yet?" he asked. "Soon," the bellman replied. "I intended to." "That mean no," the tall deputy muttered. The marshal slipped the paper into his own coat. "That's evidence now," he said. The bellman blinked. "Evidence of what?" "Maybe fraud," the marshal said. "Maybe worse." A flicker of anger flashed in the bellman's eyes, there and gone in an instant. "You have no grounds," he said. They agreed. The marshal's voice dropped. "A hungry girl doesn't agree to chain," he said. The deputies shifted, some nodding. The wind seemed to quiet for a moment, listening. Inside, the older sister exhaled shakily. "He sees it," she whispered. "He might help," the younger said. The cowboy didn't relax. "Men with badges still choose sides," he murmured. The bellman took a small step closer to the marshal. "They're my property," he said. "I paid money." "From who?" the marshal asked. "From the agency," the bellman replied. "Which agency?" the marshal said. "The labor office outside town," the man said. The marshal nodded slowly. "I've heard of that place," he said. "Good operation," the bellman replied. "Good for who?" the marshal asked. Silence. A gust of wind shoved snow against their coats. The marshal sighed. "Here's the issue," he said. "What issue?" the bellman asked. "The cold," the marshal answered. "It kills quicker than any contract." He turned his head toward the cabin. "You there?" he called. "Inside." The cowboy felt both girls tighten behind him. "Don't answer," the younger whispered. "If we stay quiet?" the older asked. "They might break the door," the cowboy said. The marshal raised his voice just enough. "I know you're in there," he said. "How?" the younger whispered. "He counted tracks," the older answered. The marshal continued. "I'm not here to drag anyone into the snow," he said. "Then why?" the cowboy shouted back. Outside, the deputies stiffened. Surprised, he spoke. The marshal stepped closer to the door. "To sort truth from lies," he said. The bellman's jaw tightened. "There's nothing to sort," the man said. "There is," the marshal replied. He lifted his lantern toward the window. "Open a crack," he called. "Let me see your face." The girls looked at the cowboy. "Do you trust him?" the older asked. "Not yet," the cowboy said. But the chain on the roof rattled again, reminding him someone worse already claimed the walls. The cowboy moved to the window slit and eased it wider, just enough for his eyes to meet the marshal's. They stared at each other across the storm. "Name?" the marshal asked. "Does it matter?" the cowboy replied. "It does," the marshal said. "Why?" "Because there's a warrant on someone out here." The older sister's heart jumped. "For who?" she whispered. The marshal continued. "A man took 2 Apache girls from the labor office," he said. "Broke them out. Struck an agent." The cowboy's hand tightened on the frame. "We ran ourselves," the older girl whispered. "You never struck anyone," the younger added. The marshal held his gaze. "You know anything about that?" he asked. The snow hissed between them. The bells at the man's belt whispered too, eager. The deputies waited. The girls clung to the cowboy's coat, and the cowboy realized something sharp and dangerous. The warrant might have his description on it, or worse. It might match exactly what he'd just done tonight. The cowboy didn't blink. Snow blew hard against the window, pushing cold air through the narrow slit. The marshal waited, lantern steady, eyes sharp, reading every flicker in the cowboy's face. Inside, the older sister whispered, "Don't speak." The younger clung to his sleeve. "He'll arrest you," she breathed. The cowboy kept his voice low. You say there's a warrant." "There is," the marshal answered. "For who?" "For a man who took 2 girls," the marshal said. The bellman stepped forward, bells chiming softly. "He means you," the man said. "You fit the tale perfect." The cowboy didn't flinch. The marshal raised a hand. "No conclusions yet." The wind screamed overhead. Snow fell from the roof in thick sheets. The chain shifted again, the bellman's signal like breathing metal. "Marshal," the cowboy said, "they came to me starving." The bellman laughed quietly. "A good story," he said. The cowboy's voice hardened. "They begged for help." The older girl whispered, "We did." The younger nodded. "Yes." The marshal didn't look away. "You struck anyone?" he asked. "No," the cowboy said. "Break anything?" "No." "Steal anything?" "No." "Then why do they accuse you?" "Because he wants them back," the cowboy said. The deputies shifted uneasily. One muttered, "The bellman plays rough." "Hush," the tall deputy warned. The bellman tilted his head, smile thin. "They're fragile creatures," he said. "They run often." The older girl clenched her fists. "We ran because you hurt us." "Never laid a hand," the man replied calmly. "That's true," the younger whispered. "He hurts with cold." The marshal's gaze sharpened. "Cold. He took our coats," the older said. "He took our boots," the younger added. The bellman shrugged. "Discipline." The marshal's lantern lowered a few inches. "That's cruelty," he said. The bellman stepped closer. "You misunderstand," he said softly. "My methods keep order." The marshal didn't move. "Your methods break people," he replied. The deputy's boots creaked. Some looked at the bellman, others looked away. Outside, the storm eased slightly, enough for the sound of distant wind to separate from the crunch of tension around them. The marshal tapped the contract in his coat pocket. "You filed nothing," he said. "Soon," the bellman answered. "Too late," the marshal replied. The bellman's eyes narrowed. "How you question my rights?" "I question your paperwork," the marshal said. The cowboy almost smiled, a tiny shift of hope. But the older girl whispered, "Careful." The younger nodded. "He changes quick." The bellman's voice dropped. "I hold proof," he said. "Maybe forged," the marshal answered. The man's bells chimed, not from wind but from tension. The marshal turned back to the cabin. "Open the door," he called. "I can't," the cowboy said. "Why?" "Because he wants them," the cowboy answered. The marshal stepped closer. "I need statements," he said. "They'll twist them," the cowboy muttered. "I won't," the marshal said. The older girl's voice trembled. "If we speak, he listens." The younger girl nodded. "He punishes later." The marshal softened his tone. "I'll separate you," he said. "No," the cowboy said. "Why not?" "They trust me," he answered. The marshal frowned slightly. "How you're not law?" "I'm warm," the cowboy replied, "and honest." For a moment, the marshal seemed to weigh those words. "That's rare," he murmured. But the bellman stepped between them, bells swaying. "This is pointless," he said. "The girls come with me." "No," the marshal replied. The bellman leaned close to him. "You won't hinder a business contract." "I'll hinder a crime," the marshal said. The bellman's hand slid toward his coat. "Don't," the tall deputy warned. "Why not?" the man said softly. "Because we're watching," the deputy answered. The chain on the roof rattled, loud, sudden, violent. Everyone froze. The older sister whispered, "Someone's on the roof with him." The younger girl's eyes widened. "No, he brought another." The cowboy moved fast to the back window and peeked through the frost. His breath caught. A second figure crouched on the roof's ridge, smaller, hunched, holding a coil of rope. The younger sister gasped. "That's the rope man," she whispered. "He drags runaways," the older added. The cowboy swore under his breath. The marshal heard none of this. The wind swallowed their whispers. Outside, the bellman smiled. "Marshal," he said softly, "you came with 2 deputies." "So?" the marshal asked. "I came with more." The cowboy's pulse slammed in his ears. He shoved away from the window. "They're going for the chimney," he whispered. The older girl stiffened. "That's how they smoke people out." The younger grabbed his arm. "Don't let them—" A heavy thud hit the roof. Then another. Snow fell in thick chunks. A rope slid down past the window, hooked with metal claws. The younger girl covered her mouth. "He's lowering something," she cried. Outside, the marshal looked up. "What now?" he muttered. The bellman smiled wider. "A gift," he said. The roofmen yanked hard on the rope. Something scraped down the chimney. Ash exploded into the cabin. The older sister coughed. The younger cried, "He'll choke us." The cowboy grabbed a blanket, smothering the stove, cutting the fire before smoke could funnel back. Sparks died instantly. The cabin filled with ash and cold air. But the bellman outside whispered through the storm, "Next drop will be fire." The cowboy froze. The girls trembled, and outside the rope tightened again. The next drop was starting. The rope above strained again, fibers creaking under the weight of whatever the roofmen were lowering. Ash sifted from the ceiling, drifting like dark snowflakes over the girl's hair and the cowboy's coat. The younger sister coughed. "What's coming next?" The older sister shook her head. "Not smoke." "Then what?" the younger whispered. The cowboy wiped ash from his eyes, listening hard. A hollow metal clink echoed inside the chimney, then another, and another. He stiffened. "They're lowering a pot," he whispered. The older sister gasped. "A fire pot!" The younger clutched her arm. "No, that kills." The cowboy nodded grimly. "Hot coals, packed tight. They'll drop them to burn us out." Outside, the marshal shouted toward the roof. "What are you doing up there?" The rope man didn't answer. The bellman stepped closer to the marshal, voice calm. "They're encouraging cooperation," he said. "With fire," the marshal snapped. "Only if needed," the bellman murmured. The cowboy looked at the girls. "Stay low," he said. "We can't stay here," the older girl whispered. "He'll burn the cabin," the younger added. A loud scrape echoed through the chimney, the pot catching on the stone edge. Then a jingle, a bell tied to the pot. He marked even this. The cowboy cursed under his breath. "They're setting it steady," he whispered. "For what?" the younger girl asked. "For the drop," he answered. The marshal pointed at the bellman. "You ordered this." The bellman tilted his head. "You ordered resistance." "That's not law," the marshal growled. "It's business," the man replied. A deputy stepped back, shaking his head. "Marshals, he's crazy." "No," the bellman said softly. "I'm patient." Inside, the older girl tugged the cowboy's sleeve. "Can you shoot the pot?" "It's inside stone," he said. "You can't break it." "With luck," he murmured. The younger girl pointed upward. "It moved!" she cried. The pot scraped again, louder now. Ash rained harder. A spark jumped out of the stove even though the fire had been smothered. "They lit it already," the cowboy whispered. He grabbed the stove poker, planting himself beneath the chimney. "You stand back," he told the girls. "No," the older said. "We won't leave you." The younger nodded. "We stay." A heavy metallic thump shook the flue. The pot had reached the narrow point. Now only the final drop remained. Outside, the bellman called calmly, "Marshal, step aside." "No," the marshal said. "You'll want to," the bellman replied. The marshal didn't move. "If that pot falls," he said, "you'll kill 3 people." "One man," the bellman said, "and my property." Inside, the cowboy gritted his teeth. "That man is no law," he growled. "We know," the older whispered. "We've lived his rules," the younger added. Another heavy scrape echoed. The pot was seconds away from falling. The cowboy raised the poker. "Get ready," he muttered. The older girl grabbed the younger. Outside, and the marshal shouted, "Stop that drop!" A deputy yelled upward. The rope man ignored him. The bellman whispered, "Do it!" The rope lifted, then jolted. The pot dropped. A screaming metal roar filled the chimney. The girls cried out. The cowboy braced himself. Then a rifle shot cracked the air. The rope snapped. The pot plunged, hit the poker, and exploded sideways through the stove opening, rolling across the floor. Coals spilled everywhere, glowing red like scattered embers of hell. The younger girl screamed, "Water!" The older grabbed the bucket. "Here!" The cowboy kicked the pot away from the girls and dumped water over the coals. Steam blasted upward, scalding hot, filling the cabin with thick white fog. Outside, the deputies panicked. What happened? Who fired? Marshal, did you? No, the marshal barked. They all turned. The bellman lowered his smoking pistol. He had fired at the rope on purpose. He had wanted the pot to fall faster. What are you doing? The marshal roared. The bellman smiled faintly. Finishing what I started. Inside, the cowboy dragged the steaming pot toward the wall and stomped out the last glowing coal. The girls coughed hard, clutching each other. We're alive, the older whispered. For now, the younger croaked. The cowboy's eyes narrowed through the cloud of steam. He wanted to kill the marshal, too, he whispered. A second rope dropped past the window. The older sister gasped. Another pot. No, the cowboy said. That's thicker rope. For what? The younger asked. He didn't answer, because he already knew. Outside, the bellman raised his voice. Marshal, he said softly, you need to move. Why? The marshal asked. The bellman pointed upward. A heavy wooden beam, a battering ram, swung from the roof, held up by the new rope. The roofmen released it. It swung down toward the cabin door with brutal speed. The girls screamed. The cowboy braced himself. The ram smashed into the door. Wood splintered. Hinges screamed. But the door held. Barely. Outside, the bellman whispered, hit it again. The rope tightened. The ram lifted. The girls clung to the cowboy. The wind howled. The ram swung down for the second strike. The battering ram swung down again, faster than before, the rope whining as it tightened. Snow exploded off the doorframe as the heavy beam slammed into the wood. Hinges bent. Boards cracked. The entire cabin shook. The older sister gasped, "It'll break!" The younger grabbed her arm. "What do we do?" The cowboy shoved them behind the table. "Stay down," he said. "Will it hold?" the older asked. "One more hit," he muttered. Outside, the marshal shouted, "Stop that ram!" "Hold your fire!" one deputy yelled. "Marshal, get back!" Another cried. The bellman ignored them all. "Again!" he told the rope men. The ram lifted with a cruel, slow pull. Snow slid from the roof like falling dust. The girls trembled. The cowboy raised his rifle, barrel fixed on the door. "We need a plan," the older girl whispered. "No time," the younger murmured. The cowboy shook his head. "There's always time," he muttered. The ram swung, the cowboy shot the rope. The ram fell short, crashed into the snow, and missed the door completely. The deputies jumped back. "He cut the rope." "Marshal, he shot from inside." "He saved the door." But the marshal didn't celebrate. He stared at the bellman. "You trying to kill everyone in there?" he asked. The bellman smiled faintly. "Only the liar." Inside, the cowboy reloaded fast. "We bought seconds," he whispered. "Only seconds," the younger asked. "That's enough," he said. "How?" the older girl asked. But before he could answer, the bellman spoke again, voice soft as falling snow. "Bring the other rope." The girls froze. "What other rope?" the younger whispered. "He has many," the older said. The cowboy moved to the back window and peeked out. His pulse hammered. 2 roofmen were dragging a coil thicker than the first, dark with pitch. "Not a rope for lifting, a rope for binding." "They want to tie the marshal," the cowboy whispered. "Why?" the older asked. "To silence him," he said. "Then us," the younger murmured. Outside, the marshal stepped forward. "All right," he said. "That's enough." The bellman raised a brow. "You're in my way," he said. "And you're out of line," the marshal replied. The wind screamed around them. The lanterns flickered. Snow whipped sideways across the valley. "You'll let me handle this," the marshal said. "No," the bellman murmured. "You will move," the marshal warned. The bellman smiled slowly, bells whispering against each other. "You can't stop me." The cowboy turned from the window. "They're ready to kill for him," he whispered. "Who?" the older asked. "All of them if paid," he said. The younger girl's voice shook. "Marshal will die." "Not if we help," the cowboy said. "But how?" the older asked. "We're trapped," the younger added. The cowboy scanned the cabin quickly. Stove, coals, blankets, lantern oil. Then his eyes landed on the heavy iron poker. "Smoke," he whispered. The older frowned. Smoke? Yes, he said. Thick smoke. But we suffocate, the younger whispered. Not if we control it, he said. He grabbed the bucket, dumped the last water inside the stove, then tore a piece of blanket and stuffed it halfway into the flue. The cabin filled with thick, dark smoke immediately. The girls coughed. Stay low, the cowboy said. What will smoke do? The older asked. Blind them, he answered. Outside, the deputies noticed instantly. Marshal, smoke. Is the cabin burning? Did the ram break something? The bellman stared at the chimney. Bell's silent now. He's forcing us inside, he murmured. The marshal raised his voice again. Everyone back, he shouted. But the bellman stepped forward. No, he said. I'm done waiting. He motioned to his roofmen. Drop it, he said. Not a pot this time. A weight. A human weight. A roofman slid down the rope, landing beside the door with a heavy thud. He drew a long hunting knife and stabbed it into the wood. Inside, the older girl gasped. He's carving through. The younger whimpered. He'll crawl inside. The cowboy pressed the blanket deeper into the flue. More smoke. More confusion. Stay down, he whispered. What will you do? The older asked. Buy time, he said. For who? The younger whispered. He didn't answer. Outside, the knife man grunted, pulling boards free. Deputies shouted. The marshal swore. The bellman watched with cold patience. Hurry, he told the knife man. Inside, boards snapped. The younger girl cried, He's inside soon. The older grabbed her hand. We can't fight him. The cowboy looked at both of them. You won't. He rose slowly from behind the table, shoulders squared, rifle loaded. Stay hidden, he whispered. What are you doing? The older girl asked. Ending this round, he said. He stepped toward the door, smoke curled around him. The knife man jammed his blade through the final board. A hand pushed through, cold air burst in. The cowboy lifted his rifle, and in one clean, precise motion, he swung the butt of the gun hard into the opening. A sickening crack, a howl of pain. The knife dropped. Outside, the bellman's head jerked up. The marshal shouted, Don't move! But the bellman stepped back, bells chiming like warning snakes. And then, from the tree line behind all of them, a second set of lanterns appeared. Not deputies, not the bellman's men, not the marshals. A new group. Silent, slow, hidden until now. The older sister whispered, Who are they? The cowboy stared through the smoke. He didn't know. The new lanterns glowed faint in the storm, weaving between the pines like wandering spirits. The deputies turned, shocked. Even the roofmen froze, eyes searching the tree line. Snow blew sideways, revealing silhouettes, 5, maybe 6 riders, moving with slow, judgmental calm. The older sister clutched the cowboy's coat. More of his men, she whispered. No, the younger murmured. They're too quiet. The cowboy moved back from the damaged door, smoke swirling around him. They're not his, he whispered. Then who? The older asked. I don't know. Outside, the marshal stepped forward, lantern raised. Identify yourselves, he shouted. The lanterns in the trees didn't answer. They just kept advancing, single file, horses breathing steam into the icy dark. The bellman's smile faded. That's not my company, he muttered. A deputy whispered to the marshal. Those aren't our boys either. Then who are they? Someone else. The marshal turned his horse toward the shapes. Show your badges, he called. Still nothing. The riders stopped at the edge of the clearing. Snow piled on their hats. Their coats hung heavy. They sat atop thick, strong horses, mountain stock, not town animals. The bellman narrowed his eyes. They're here early, he murmured. Who? The tall deputy asked. The bellman didn't answer. The cowboy heard it too. A low rumble. Not thunder, not wind. Wagon wheels, heavy ones. The older sister trembled. A wagon. Why a wagon? The younger asked. The dark shapes parted. A large wagon rolled forward, pulled by 2 black draft horses. Lanterns hung from each corner. A thick canvas covered the back. The marshal frowned. That's a transport wagon. For prisoners? One deputy asked. No, the bellman said. For labor. The cowboy stiffened. Labor? he whispered. The older girl gasped. He's trading at... The younger clutched her chest. For what? Outside, the wagon rolled to a stop. A man climbed down from the driver's seat. He wore a dark coat, no badge, and a red scarf around his neck. He didn't look at anyone. He looked straight at the cowboy's cabin. Then he nodded once at the bellman. The bellman returned the nod. "You called them," the marshal growled. "Yes," the bellman said, "for collection." The marshal stepped forward. "You brought a labor gang here, at night, in a storm." "They don't tire," the bellman replied, "and they don't ask questions." The deputies whispered nervously. "Marshal, this is wrong. Marshal, he planned this. We're outnumbered." Inside, the girls backed away from the window. "He brought a whole crew," the older whispered. "To take us," the younger added. The cowboy lowered his rifle. "No," he said. "They'll have to earn you." Outside, the man in the red scarf spoke for the first time. "Open the cabin," he said, "or we break it down." The marshal lifted his lantern. "You've no authority here." "We have contracts," the man replied. "Forged," the marshal snapped. "Filed," the bellman lied. The tall deputy stepped away from the bellman. "We're not part of this," he muttered. "No," the bellman asked softly. "Then step aside." The older sister tugged the cowboy's sleeve. "Can we run?" "No tracks," he said. "They'd follow." The younger pointed at the stove. "What about out the back?" "Roofmen," the cowboy whispered. A loud metallic thump hit the roof. The roofmen were moving again. The man in the red scarf approached the door with heavy boots. "Last warning," he said. "Open." The cowboy whispered to the girls. "When they break in, run behind the stove." "But they'll see us," the older said. "Let them," he replied, "because they won't reach you." The younger girl shook with fear. "Cowboy, don't die." He didn't answer. Outside, the bellman lifted his hand. "Break it." The roofmen above pulled a chain tight. The ram lifted again, broken rope replaced with a new one. The tall deputy shouted, "Don't! Marshal, stop them!" The marshal raised his rifle. "Nobody moves!" But the labor gang drew their guns and aimed at him. The marshal froze. "You outnumbered me," he muttered. "No," the bellman said softly. "I prepared." The ram swung. The door split. Snow burst inside. Wind howled through the opening. The cowboy pushed the girls behind the stove. "Stay low!" he barked. A man's boot stepped through the shattered doorway, but before he could enter, a rifle cracked from the tree line. Not the marshals, not the deputies. One of the labor men fell in the snow, dropped instantly. Everyone turned. The dark tree line flickered with movement. More riders, more lanterns, more guns. The older sister gasped. "Who's shooting?" the younger whispered. "That's not them either." The cowboy narrowed his eyes. A new voice shouted through the storm. "Marshal, stand clear." The marshal's eyes widened. "No," he murmured. "Not tonight." Another shot rang out. Another labor man collapsed. The bellman spun, shocked. "Who are they?" he hissed. The marshal grit his teeth. "That," he said, "is the territorial patrol." And then, through the trees, through the snow, through the lantern light, a full patrol unit charged down the ridge, rifles raised, badges glinting, voices fierce, and they were riding straight toward the cabin. The territorial patrol thundered down the ridge, hooves pounding through the snow like rolling thunder. Their lanterns swung wildly, casting sharp flashes of light across the clearing. Rifles gleamed in their hands. Badges caught the glow, cold and bright. Inside, the younger sister clung to the cowboy's arm. "Are they here for us?" "They're here for order," he said. "Is that good?" the older whispered. "We'll find out," he muttered. Outside, the labor gang scattered behind the wagon, guns drawn. The deputies backed away, unsure who to face. The marshal swore under his breath. "Couldn't wait till morning, could you?" he murmured. The patrol's lead rider raised his hand. The unit slid to a halt, snow spraying in broad arcs. "Marshal," he called. "Patrol captain," the marshal replied. The captain swung down from his horse, boots landing firm. "Heard you might need help," he said. "I do now," the marshal answered. The bellman stepped forward, bells chiming softly. "This is unnecessary," he said. "We had things handled." The captain looked him over. "You're from the labor office," he said. I provide work, the bellman replied. Funny, the captain said. We got letters saying you provide chains. The labor gang shifted, hands tightening on their guns. The red scarf driver narrowed his eyes. Who sent those letters? He demanded. The same man who signed them, the captain replied. Your ex-accountant. The bellman's jaw tightened. He lies, he said. Inside, the cowboy whispered, truth's catching up. I hope, the older sister murmured, or we're traded again, the younger added. The captain turned to the marshal. Report, he said. The marshal nodded toward the cabin. 2 Apache girls inside, he said, ran from this man. They were freezing when they arrived. They were my workers, the bellman cut in. You stripped them, the marshal replied. The captain studied the half-broken door, the smashed rope, the smoke staining the chimney. That cabin looks like a battlefield, he said. Ask who started it, the marshal answered. The captain's gaze landed on the ram, the ropes, the broken boards. You ordered the ram? He asked. The bellman smiled thinly. I ordered compliance. The captain shook his head slowly. That's not compliance, he said. That's siege. The bellman's voice cooled. Those girls are my legal property, he said. Not anymore, the captain replied. They stamped their marks, the bellman insisted. Inside, the older sister whispered, we didn't understand the paper. We just wanted shelter, the younger said. The cowboy set his jaw. Time to choose, he murmured. The captain turned toward the cabin. Man inside, he called. I'm Captain Reeves. Will you speak? The cowboy took a slow breath. Careful, the older girl whispered. They could arrest you, the younger added. They already might, he said. But silence helps him more. He stepped closer to the broken door, keeping the girls behind the stove. I'll speak, he called. Name? The captain asked. Doesn't matter right now, the cowboy replied. It does, the marshal added. It will later, the cowboy said. For now, hear this. He raised his voice. They came to me without coats, he said, barefoot in snow, shaking like leaves. I wrapped them in blankets, fed them. That's all. The bellman laughed softly. He stole what I lawfully bought, he said. He nearly burned them alive. The cowboy snapped. The captain's eyes hardened. Burned them. He dropped fire down the chimney, the cowboy said. The pot, the coals. Ask your men. One deputy stepped forward quickly. I saw the pot, sir, he said. He ordered it dropped. He pointed at the bellman. I warned him, the deputy added. He didn't care. The bellman glared. Cowards break ranks when scared, he said. The marshal rubbed his brow. I can confirm, he said quietly. He ordered the pot. He ordered the ram. The captain turned fully to the bellman now. You lied about the marshal, he said. You lied about restraint. You lied about safe retrieval. The bellman shrugged lightly. You'll believe 2 girls over contracts. I'll believe burns and bruises, the captain replied. If I see them. His gaze shifted to the cabin again. Girls, he called. Will you step forward? The older girl froze. I can't, she whispered. He'll see us, the younger said. The cowboy spoke gently. You choose, he said. I'll back whatever you do. The older girl swallowed hard. Then she stood up slowly, guiding her sister. They stepped into view behind the broken doorframe, still wrapped in his blanket. Ice crystals clung to their hair. Their ankles were mottled red from cold. Their hands still bore rope marks, raw and swollen. The captain's face changed. That's enough, he said quietly. The bellman took a step forward. They're dramatizing, he said. Snow does that. The older sister lifted her wrists. Snow didn't do this, she said. The younger pointed at her bare feet. And Snow didn't steal our boots, she added. Murmurs rippled through the deputies and patrol riders. The red scarf driver gripped his coat. Girls bruise easy, he muttered. They'll heal. The captain looked back at him. From chains? He asked. From hunger? From nights like this? The bellman's patience snapped. They belong to me, he hissed. I paid silver. He reached for his coat. The cowboy's rifle snapped up. Don't, he warned. The marshal's gun came up too. Hands clear, he barked. The labor gang drew weapons, aiming at the cabin. The patrol snapped rifles toward them in one swift motion. The valley turned into a frozen standoff. Wind screamed, horses stamped, snow swirled between gun barrels. The bellman's eyes locked on the girls. "You think they're safe with him?" he asked. "A lonely cowboy? A lawless man?" The older girl held the blanket tighter. "He gave warmth," she said. "You gave fear." The younger lifted her chin. "He called us property," she said. "He called us people." She nodded toward the cowboy. The captain breathed out slowly. "Choice seems clear," he said. Then the bellman moved. Fast. Too fast. He didn't draw toward the marshal. He didn't aim at the patrol. He leveled his pistol at the cabin doorway, directly at the older girl's chest. Time shattered. The cowboy fired first. The marshal fired too. 2 shots cracked as one. The bellman staggered back, coat jerking, bells screaming as they clashed together. His pistol went wide. The bullet shattered wood above the girl's head, showering her with splinters but missing flesh. He toppled into the snow, bells ringing one last sharp note, then falling silent. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then everything broke. The labor gang raised their guns. The patrol fired. Deputies dove for cover. Horses reared, screaming. The cowboy dragged the girls down behind the stove as bullets tore through the cabin walls. The younger sister sobbed, hands over her ears. The older pressed her forehead to the floor, whispering a prayer in her own language. Outside, the fight raged briefly and brutally. Snow kicked up. Muzzle flashes split the dark. Men shouted and fell. The marshal shouted orders. The captain barked commands. Boots slid on ice. Bells lay half-buried in red-stained snow. And then, as quickly as it began, silence. Only the wind, only the creak of leather, only the distant jingle of one last bell, rolling in the drift. "Don't move," the cowboy whispered to the girls. "Are we alive?" the younger asked. "For now," he said. A firm voice called from outside. "Man in the cabin, step out slow." The captain. The fight was over, but their fate was not. The cowboy stepped out slowly, hands raised, rifle hanging from one finger by the trigger guard. Snow swallowed the sound of his boots. The girls peeked through the broken doorway, trembling but alive. The wind eased at last, carrying only the distant hum of the dying storm. The captain motioned for the deputies to lower their guns. "Easy," he said. The marshal nodded. "Stand down, boys." The labor gang lay scattered across the snow, groaning or silent. The bellman's body was half buried beneath the drifting frost. His bells no longer chimed. They rested still on his belt, frozen in place. The cowboy exhaled long and slow. "It's over?" he asked. "For them," the captain said. The marshal approached with tired eyes. "You kept them alive," he said. "I tried," the cowboy replied. "You did more than try." The older sister stepped into the clearing, blanket tight around her shoulders. The younger followed, clutching the cowboy's coat from behind. The captain studied their ankles, wrists, and raw hands. His jaw tightened. "They were hurt bad," he said. "Colder than the dead," the marshal added. The older girl whispered, "He saved us." The younger nodded quickly. "He never asked nothing." The captain looked at the cowboy. "They told truth." "They did," the cowboy answered. The marshal folded his arms. "So there's still the matter of that warrant," he said. "For who?" the older sister asked. "For a man who took 2 girls?" the marshal said. "We ran ourselves," the younger insisted. "We saw no violence from him," the older added. The captain faced the marshal. "Warrant stands," he said, "but context matters." He turned to the cowboy. "You harm those girls?" "No." "You force them?" "No." "You profit from them?" "No." The captain looked at the sisters. "You stay with him by choice?" he asked. "Yes," the older said. "He kept us warm," the younger whispered. The captain nodded once. "Then the warrant's void," he said. "It was meant for a thief, not a guardian." The marshal exhaled, relieved. "Good. I didn't want a fight." The younger girl looked up at the cowboy, tears forming. "Are we safe?" "For now," he said softly. "With him?" the older asked. "If you choose," the captain answered. "And if you don't," the marshal added. "We'll find you a place." The sisters looked at each other. The younger spoke first. We stay with him. The older nodded. He protected us when no one else did. The captain's stern face softened. Then it settled. He signaled his men. Clean up this mess. Burn the wagon. Gather the papers. The patrol moved with discipline, flipping bodies, dragging the surviving labor men into custody, clearing weapons from the snow. Deputies gathered scattered lanterns. The marshal checked the fallen ram. The cowboy stood silent, watching the sisters breathe easier than they had in days. The older sister tugged his sleeve. "You won," she whispered. "No," he said quietly. "We survived." The younger girl hugged his arm. "Thank you." For the first time since the storm began, the night grew peaceful. Snow drifted softly. The trees whispered. The sky seemed less heavy. The captain approached them one last time. "We'll ride by tomorrow," he said, "for welfare checks." "Understood," the cowboy replied. The marshal stepped closer. "You need supplies." "Some," the cowboy admitted. "I'll send a crate," the marshal said. The captain tipped his hat. "You two," he told the sisters, "stay warm, stay fed, stay free." The girls nodded. The patrol mounted. The deputies followed. The wagon was set ablaze, flames crackling bright in the dark. Soon the valley was quiet again. The cowboy guided the sisters back toward the cabin. It stood battered, splintered, scorched, but still standing. "Will the roof hold?" the older asked. "For tonight," he said. "And tomorrow?" The younger added. "We'll fix it together," he replied. The sisters smiled, finally, shyly, hopefully. They stepped inside. The cowboy followed and shut what remained of the door against the cold. The bells outside were silent forever, but inside, for the first time in a long time, warmth waited. If this story gripped you from the first sentence to the final shot, don't let the trail end here. Saddle up and ride with us into the next tale where danger stalks the night, justice rides on weary horses, and kindness becomes the only fire bright enough to drive away the cold. Every new chapter brings another mystery, another showdown, another heart-pounding twist waiting in the dust. If you want more stories that blend suspense, emotion, and Western drama just like this one, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow the next episode. The frontier is wide, the shadows are deep, and the next rider on the horizon may change everything. Keep riding with us.